Hey there guys, and welcome to this week's episode of Matthew Presents, where I'm going to be continuing my best possible series as I'm going to be looking through all the episode 6s of New Who, and as always picking my favourite. So sit back and enjoy. So then, today we are on to the episode 6s, and very weird lineup today. I think this is going to be a controversial one because there are a few episodes in here that you either love or you hate, and some people hate them, and some people are like, why do you hate them? And some people love them, and they're like, why do you love them? So I'm expecting quite a big split opinion in the comments below, but nevertheless, let's start with the first episode 6, which of course was Dalek. What better way to begin today's video with the best, hands down, the best Dalek episode of Modern Who. Flat out, there's no question about it, no argument, Dalek is the best Dalek episode. And do you want to know why? Because they weren't overused and they weren't misused. And there wasn't just a million fleets of Daleks just flung into an episode, and their motives weren't, let's take over the universe, or let's destroy the universe, or let's turn everyone into a Dalek. No, it was nothing like the generic Dalek story that we've been used to now in Modern Who, pretty much. It was just so unique and so solid because there was one Dalek, and all it wanted to do was escape. Well, it would have went on to probably destroy the world, but its main goal was to just escape and find other Daleks, because of course we were introduced to the Time War story arc, and it was interesting to see that this was the last Dalek, and it was just different. And the Daleks have been terribly, as I've spoke about briefly so far in this series, because like I said, we've had fleets of them, millions and millions, and they've been deleted and they've been destroyed by flicking switches and long words, and they've been evaporated and they've just been embarrassed. But this Dalek was not embarrassed at all, because it took on an entire base, it took on an entire army, and it destroyed everything in its way. It's probably the only episode that has truly, I wouldn't say it made a Dalek look scary, but it truly made a Dalek look powerful and menacing, and it made the Dalek look indestructible. And that's something that they've not looked like ever since this episode, because in other episodes they've looked vulnerable, they've looked easy to defeat, and they've looked nothing apart from an embarrassment. But this Dalek didn't, and that's why I love this story. And this is why Robert Shearman is the modern Terry Nation, because he's the only person who has written a Dalek story well so far. And on top of that, the story itself was brilliant, the characters were great, and we cannot fault Christopher Eccleston's performance as the Doctor, because when he was in that room with that Dalek and the Dalek said exterminate, the fear in him, the anger in him was just unlike anything we'd seen from the Doctor before. So this was just a unique episode that I can pretty much hardly fault. So Dalek, I'd give it a 10 out of 10, but there are episodes that are better, so I'd probably give Dalek a 9.5 out of 10. Now on to Series 2, which of course is the second part of the Cybermen 2 part, which was in Series 2, which was the Age of Steel. And don't want to repeat myself too much, but this story continued to be brilliant. Got to see a lot more of the cyber industries. Of course, John Lumet got turned into the cyber leader, and the ending was great. I think when they were climbing up to the big blimp, or whatever you want to call it, the ladders, and the cyber leaders following them. I love how clever it was when the Doctor was he knew Mickey and I forgot his name, Jake, that's the one, were listening to him over the video, and he was just kind of giving them little signals of what to do. I just love the way they infiltrated the factories, and the ending where they were climbing up the ladder, very intense, and I thought the cyber leader was going to catch them, and what a catch from Pete Tyler to to cut the ladder and see the cyber leader fall. And the ending was beautiful as well, because we got to see Rose's selfishness, maybe you could say, I don't know, but yeah, she chose the Doctor over Mickey, but their relationship was disintegrating anyway, and yeah, quite an emotional, and I will admit Rose's, Billy Piper's acting and Rose at the end was very good, and that's something very rare, I say, but yeah, the end where she says goodbye to Mickey, which we think is the last time we'll ever see him, was a beautiful moment, so yeah, I think it's better than the first part, but a solid ending and a great second part to this two-parter. So I'd probably give Age of Steel an 8 out of 10. Next, we have the Lazarus Experiment, and this is exactly what I meant at the beginning when I said split opinion. There's not one dominant opinion when it comes to this episode. I've heard people who love it, people who like it, people who aren't bothered, people who slightly dislike it, and people who despise it. I don't think there's one Whovian who agrees with another on this story. It just has such a split opinion, and I don't see why. I like the Lazarus Experiment. I mean, I know Tom hates it because Matt Gatiss is in it, which, whatever, that's his opinion. But I like the Lazarus Experiment. I really do. I like the way that it was based in Earth, and I like the way that it ended up being a massive, massive plot point in the Harold Saxon storyline. Like the long game in Series 1, at first you think that this story has little matter, it doesn't matter, there's no point in it, but it ends up having quite a massive part to play in the series, so that's why I like this story, and I love how Professor Lazarus is this scientist who wants to revolutionise things, and of course it backfires on him, and yeah, he becomes such a creepy monster. I love the design, I love the monster that Lazarus became, and he didn't hold back. It was quite dark the way that he killed people, and I love the way he was chasing the Doctor around this theatre or whatever it was, this building. Great great scenes when the Doctor gasses up the room and blows him up. You think he's dead, and he comes back, and yeah, Martha basically stood up to her family once they found out about the Doctor as well, which was very interesting to see the Doctor meet the Jones family in more detail, and the ending was quite intense as well when it looked like Martha was going to fall to her death, but the Doctor uses his piano skills, because obviously the Doctor can probably play any instrument, and yeah, he kills Lazarus. So yeah, great story, very gripping, because you think one minute you think he's dead, then he comes back. So I don't see why people dislike this story. It has a massive part to play in Series 3, which, again, some people dislike for some reason. So I think it's quite an underrated story, one that I really enjoy, so I'd probably give the Lazarus Experiment a 7 out of 10. And again, another episode which has such split opinions. The Doctor's Daughter, and again, loads of people love it, loads of people like it, loads of people hate it. And I'm going to be the one again to say I like this episode. To see Martha travelling with Donna and the Doctor again was beautiful in itself. And, one thing that I guess disappointed me a little bit is that Martha wasn't in it as much as I'd wanted. She was kind of, drifted away from what was actually happening. She had to make her own way, which I guess, it made sense with the plot because she brought the Hath and the humans together. But I would like to have seen more of Martha with the Doctor in this story. So I guess that was slightly underwhelming. And, some people hearing the title of the episode being The Doctor's Daughter might have thought, oh my God, we finally get to see that the Doctor has a daughter. And I can see how that, kind of misled people, and some people would have been let down. But technically, she was the Doctor's daughter, biologically, technically, sort of, wibbly wobbly, kind of. But the episode I thought was great. It reminded, and when me and James were doing our marathon, the Web Planet reminded us a lot of this episode. And it's a great story. To see them stuck in the middle of this war, it kind of reminds me of The Caves and reminds me of other great stories like Remembrance and so many other stories where the Doctor's been caught in a battle and he's got to sort of kind of sort and kind of make peace between two sides and people get caught in it. So I wouldn't say it's a dynamic we've not seen before, but I don't get tired of seeing it when it's like this. Slowly throughout the episode we get to see the Doctor getting guilt tripped because people are like, you're a soldier, and he's like, no, I'm not. But then he sees Jenny, his daughter, and she's like, have you fought in wars? And got to see the Doctor being guilt tripped, and we got to see a bit more of the inside of him, I think, which was very interesting. That's what Jenny brought out of him, the Time Lord, and very sad to see her get shot in the end. And we all thought she was dead, of course, but she flew off to have adventures, and the outcry to see her come back is massive. And I wouldn't say she's disconnected from the Doctor Who universe. For God's sake, she's Peter Davison's daughter, and she's David Tennant's wife. So yeah, there's a lot of links there to the Doctor Who universe. So there's no reason why she shouldn't return. So yeah, Moffat, get your head out your arse and listen to the fans. We want Jenny back, and I want to see where this character is. I'd give the Doctor's daughter probably a 7 out of 10. Now on to the Series 5 episode, Vampires in Venice. Now cast your minds back to episodes like Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, or The Curse of the Black Spot. Episodes where there have been very intriguing characters and monsters, and we get completely let down. This was what the Vampires of Venice was. I mean, it's not bad, it's not a terrible story. I love the set design as well. I love the surroundings that they're in. It makes you really feel like you're in the story with them. And of course, vampires in Doctor Who, I was extremely looking forward to that. And they were the stereotypical vampires, you know, they looked extremely attractive. And, you know, there was the scenes where they were about to take a big bite out of somebody, and you're like, oh my god, here we go. And there was the same sort of, you know, show them garlic, you know, the stereotypical vampire sort of story. But what really annoyed me is that they turned out to be fish. I mean, couldn't they, for once, have just made the conclusion to this story not alien? I mean, I know it's Doctor Who and every creature's an alien, but couldn't they have at least not looked as like fish? Couldn't they have been a fish that still looked a lot like vampires? That's the only thing that let down in this story. I mean, the ending was not bad. I enjoyed the ending. I thought the ending was pretty good. I wouldn't say it was a cop-out ending at all, but the only nitpick, the only thing that really niggles me about this story is the fish, because throughout, you know, I wanted vampires to be in the story, and I wouldn't say it disappointed me when they looked like vampires, because they were like vampires. You know, the resistance against them was exactly the same. You still needed the same type of things to destroy vampires, so, you know, there's nothing different to my thoughts on the vampires being there. I thought that they were very good when they were vampires, but the ending when they turned out to be fish creatures kind of took me out of the story, because all the enjoyment I'd have previous of vampires being in this episode was just thrown out the window. All the seriousness, all the intensity was just thrown out the window when they became fish. So that was a letdown, really. So a story that had premise and it could have been brilliant, but yeah, that little nitpick kind of ruins it for me. I don't know if that's just me overreacting. I know a lot of people who really like this story, so I'd probably give Vampires in Venice, oh, well, I'm going to say 5 out of 10. Now on to the second part of the Rebel Flesh two-parter, which was the Almost People. And I spoke last week about how this two-parter didn't really intrigue me much, but I'll admit, I enjoyed the second part more than I did the first. I admire that this story had a massive part to play when it comes to Series 6, because of course Amy's baby ended up being a flesh avatar. So it had a big part to play, and I think the chemistry between the Ganger Doctor and the actual normal Doctor was brilliant. I think it's absolutely amazing how they pulled it off. And I was definitely more invested in the second part of this story, and I think the ending was very good as well. But yeah, again, as much as I was more invested in this, I think the first part still drags this two-parter down for me. It could have been done in one part, I guess, but I wouldn't say it dragged in the second part. But it could have been done in one part, I think. But yeah, the second part's definitely an improvement on the first part, but it's still not a story I'd rush back to watch in a hurry. So I'd probably give the Almost People a 6 out of 10. And finally, we're into Series 7 with the Bells of St. John. Many of you might be wondering, why am I not doing the snowmen? Because then every episode would be pushed back, and I wouldn't be able to do the snowmen in the Christmas specials, which is episode 14. So, the Bells of St. John. I like the premise of this episode. I think it was very 21st century, you know, with the enemy being, you know, linked with the Wi-Fi, and, you know, basically, because the internet's such a big part of our lives now, and, you know, Doctor Who's always been good at kind of following with the times and staying relatable, and this story did that very well. I like the way that the enemy was revolved around Wi-Fi. Of course, it was Clara's first proper story, and as much as I prefer the Victorian Clara, I liked her in this. I thought she was pretty good. And I like the way that it was set in modern day, because that's something very rare we get in Doctor Who, well, especially Maximus era. It's always been a lot more off-Earth, and if it has been on Earth, it's either been past or future. So to see it in modern-day Earth was pretty good to see, them around London, seeing a lot of landmarks, like going over the bridge and the Shard, of course, I thought was very good. So I like the feel of this episode, and I like the atmosphere and the essence that it gave. The only problem I had was the villain. I didn't really like the villain in this episode. I wasn't really that bothered about the villain, and despite the whole Wi-Fi thing being very modern day, it wasn't something that I was very bothered about. So the only thing that took me out of this story was probably the villain, but everything else I enjoyed. I think it was a good introduction to Clara's character, and I just like the atmosphere and the feeling of this episode. But a few things did let me down a little bit, so I'd probably give the Bells of St. John a 6 out of 10. So, to conclude episode 6, we've had some, quite a mixed bag once again of episodes, and I think you all know my clear favourite. I mean, I've spoke so fondly of this episode so many goddamn times, but there are a few episodes in here that you might be surprised I dislike, a few that you might be surprised I like, but of course there's only really one standout winner. I think the Age of Steel was a very good ending to a two-parter. The Almost People was not a bad ending to that two-parter either. I think The Doctor's Daughter and The Lazarus Experiment are very, well, I wouldn't say very, they're quite underrated episodes. The Bells of St. John was average. There's only one episode that really stands out to me as one that just blows every other one out of the water, and that is, of course, the Series 1, Episode 6, Dalek, because it remains and still is, and probably will be for a while, the best Dalek episode in Modern Who, because it's the only one that didn't embarrass the Dalek, didn't humiliate the Dalek, it made the Dalek look kick-ass. So, of course, episode 6 in my best possible series goes to Dalek. Before I end this video, let's answer a couple of comments from last week, which was episode 5.
My first comment is from Brian Movies Maker, who says, could the Vashta Nerada kill the Weeping Angels? Please answer and keep on the awesome videos. Well, thank you. And could the Vashta Nerada kill the Weeping Angels? Well, I don't know, because they make people into skeletons, so you couldn't make the Weeping Angels into skeletons because they're already stone. So I don't see how the Vashta Nerada would kill the Weeping Angels, because even if the shadow had got round the Weeping Angel could just boom disappear. But then again, can the Vashta Nerada blink? What if the Vashta Nerada don't blink? The Weeping Angels then can't move. So yeah, that's a very interesting question actually, because the Weeping Angels can't see the Vashta Nerada, they can only see shadows, but the Vashta Nerada couldn't make the Weeping Angels skeletons, so it might just be a standoff. Yeah. Comment below what you guys think, because that's just blew my mind. My second comment is from Craig Stratton, who says, wait, are the Daleks and the Angels in New York at the same time then? Yeah, I guess they are. That's Moffat for you. The king of creating plot holes. But yeah, that's the thing about the Angels Take Manhattan. Moffat got so caught up in the companion's departure, he forgot about actually closing the plot as well. And the Angels were still left in New York. Apparently they had little power and they were weak, but they're still there. And over time, I'd imagine they'd gain power. So yeah, technically the Angels are still in New York right now, and have been in New York and will be in New York every single day between 1935 and the forever future. So if Doctor Who ever returns to New York, then the Angels should be there. So yeah, Moffat, like I said last week, has kind of screwed anyone or any writer that plans to use New York in the future, because they kind of can't unless they close the Angels story, which I can't see happening. So, as I said last week, well done Moffat. Well done. My third and final comment is from Kibo the Geek, who I've met, so nice to hear from you. He said, I absolutely hate Rebel Flesh. I watched it for a second time a few weeks ago, as I hadn't watched it since broadcast. I fell asleep. It's written by the same guy who wrote Fear Her. How would you react if it was announced that he was to return to write an episode of the show? Well, that guy is Matthew Graham, and the only episodes he has written were Fear Her and Rebel Flesh and the Almost People. I mean, if he was to return, I wouldn't say I'd be too excited or too optimistic, but I'd give the guy a chance. There's no reason why we shouldn't give him a chance because you know, every writer will have a bad day, and I'm sure they'll have a good day as well. But of course, looking at his filmography, I wouldn't be too hopeful. But I wouldn't hold that against him. But yeah, for her, obviously I'm going to get more into that when we get round to episode 11, I think it is. But yeah, it just didn't have any depth, and I liked how it was surrounded by the Olympics. But apart from that, it wasn't bad. It wasn't horrific, but far from great either. It was quite dull, quite forgettable. But I'll get onto that when I get to it. And the same for the Rebel Flesh and the Almost People. I mean, the concept had potential, but I just don't think it was executed well, and I don't think it was delivered too well. So if he was to return, I wouldn't be hopeful, but I'd give the guy a chance. So then guys, thank you for watching this week's video. As always, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and comment below your favourite episode 6 of New Who. Tell me what it is and why in the comments below, and I'll answer them when I do episode 7. Now this is where you guys have got to listen, because next week's classic week, so there won't be a best possible series. So episode 7 of this series will be on Monday the 30th of July. The reason for that is, of course, James is going on holiday, and I need his computer to edit videos. So the 2 weeks he's away, there was supposed to be no videos, but what I'm going to do is to kill two birds with one stone. What I mean is to have videos up when we're actually not here, and also to make this series end before Series 8 rolls round. What I'm going to do for you guys is I'm going to record episodes 7, 8, 9 and 10 before James goes on holiday. I'm going to edit them all, and then I'm going to put them on schedule uploads while we're away. So on Monday the 30th of July you'll be getting episode 7. The following Friday, which I think is the 4th of July, you'll be getting episode 8. Then on the 7th, Monday the 7th of July, you'll be getting episode 9, and then the following Friday you'll be getting episode 10 before we come back. So that might have confused a lot of you, so maybe write that down if you're confused. But basically, when we're not actually here, there's going to be scheduled videos of my best possible series. So, now I can take a breath. I will see you guys next week for my Classic Week video, which will be my top 5 Classic Who stories so far. But until then, I'm going to have a lie down, catch my breath, and I'll see you guys next week.